going to start and continue with the topic of the Jesus People movement. And I may repeat myself because I've been to this church and I know that's the trend. To keep saying the same thing. I didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, Lord. It is Lord, isn't it? You got it right? Okay. But so I try not to repeat myself as much. But if I do repeat it, say the same thing over again. So what?
Right.
Amen.
You know, you learn by repetition.
Exactly.
That's the greatest way to learn. I guess Aristotle or Pluto or one of those guys figured that out. That's where our fearless leader learned. In 1968, I was in the middle of the Haight-Ashbury, and you'll see it on television sometimes depicted in things regarding the 60s. You can't see it, seeing it on film doesn't do it justice, you have to be there. It was like walking into two different worlds, a straight world. I'd been selling cars in Los Angeles, and I ran away from my situation, went up to San Francisco. Immediately found my way down into the Haight-Ashbury of San Francisco. There's nothing can explain or capture it. You had to be there. And it was everything they say. It was drugs, sex, rock and roll, decadence. Well, at the same time, decadence looking for free love. And motivation on my part was to find that beautiful utopia. It didn't work out that way. By the time I got there, the summer of love was already over, and violence had started to creep in because of the drug trade and violence that was there, and it became what they quote a heavy scene. And so after about 6 months, I worked to get out of that area, moved to another part of San Francisco, where I met a woman named Sue, who was to become my wife, and we basically stayed there for another 3, 4 months, 5 months, and decided that the scene was too heavy, you could feel the spiritual world without knowing the spiritual world. We weren't aware, quote, of the spiritual world. So we fled north. And when we went across the Bay Bridge to Oakland side from San Francisco, we literally could feel that oppression, that weight lift off of us. We were on an adventure that we didn't know about. That adventure wound us up the coast of I-5, up the coast, and then over to the I-5 and I-5 corridor, heading up toward Oregon. And then we got into Oregon, and one night in Eugene, Oregon, I got up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep, just walked around, and I saw this huge poster. And it said, "Come to the tent revival, camping facilities available. Families welcome." It just didn't register at the time. We were living in a hippie van, a Dodge van, with all kinds of pictures and decorations. And so we decided then we'd just continue north. It was hard to find a place to sleep in those days. You'd get hassled for all kinds of reasons. The police didn't like long hair, etc. Hippies. And so we ended up making it up to Seattle, Washington. And in Seattle, Washington, it was hard to find a place to stay with a camper. So we drove north up toward Buffalo, and then there was a little road we went off to the side on. We just went off to the side because we figured we'd get out in the country. The further we out in the country, the further we had a chance to find a place. And at one point we had an argument, and I remember stopping the van. Sue said she was going to leave me, go back, and I had a series of bad situations where I had been left, and I felt really emotionally drained, and I jumped out of the van, threw my arms up in the air, and said, I quit, I give up. I didn't know who I was quitting to. But I figured might as well quit. So I said, I quit, I give up. She said, get back in the van. She didn't know how to drive it. So that's reconciliation. You know? So I got back in the van, went to a little store, bought a quart of beer because we were heading out to the wilderness. I didn't want to go alone. And so we went out and we went over this railroad tracks and we saw an arrow. And I'm driving, following these arrows, and taking a right turn, a left turn. Sue had her head down, she put her head up and said, where are you going? I said, a tent revival. She said, a what? I said, a tent revival, you know. A tent revival. Yeah, like we always go to tent revivals. But I'd seen Elmer Gantry in the Gantry movie, and, you know, they had this tent revival, so I could, and then it reminded me too, when I saw the tent revival, camping facilities, bring the whole family. I had the whole family. And, you know, so I said, why not? What can we lose? So we finally turn a lot of turns. Go up this hill, there's a banner over the road, and as we pull up into this young evangelist comes running down. He was so excited to see us. And he rolls through the window down and he says, hi, you folks live in there? Yeah. Are you looking for a place to camp? Yeah. He had all the gifts at work, you know. And so he said, yeah. I said, we were looking for a place to camp. He said, well, pull up in the back of that tent. He had about 1.5 acres parking, and he wanted to get us right in the back of the tent. In case we didn't go in, we'd get the overflow. So he came around a little bit later and said, what are you guys doing tonight? I said, well, let me check my calendar. And so we went to the service. And if you've never been to a Pentecostal meeting, you all have, because that's what you do every week, in case you didn't know it. But if you're coming from where we were coming from, it's straight out weird. So you know how a stranger feels when he walks into this church. Who are these weird people? Especially that woman who stands over here hopping up and down.